Yeah, welcome to the dojo, baby, man. Have no fear, TyKwonDoe is here, man. Look, we got our next seductive type in the art of seduction, and that is the dandy. Now, if you watch some of my other content, a lot of people have been saying that the Prince video, that Prince is a dandy. So every other chapter thus far has read on about how each seductive types uses certain features and certain characteristics, certain aspects of their victim in order to seduce them. So let's see what the dandy does. Let's start with the description. Most of us feel trapped within the limited roles that the world expects us to play. We are instantly attracted to those who are more fluid, more ambiguous than we are. Those who create their own persona. This already does sound like Prince, chat, I'm not gonna lie. Dandies excite us because they cannot be categorized and hint at a freedom we want for ourselves. They play with masculinity and femininity. They fashion their own physical image, which is always startling. They are mysterious and elusive. They also appeal to the narcissism of each sex. To a woman, they are psychologically female. To a man, they are male. Dandies fascinate and seduce in large numbers. Use the power of the dandy to create an ambiguous, alluring presence that stirs repressed desires. So if you ask me so far, chat, I think my prediction with the dandy is that a lot of their image, a lot of what they wear, how they dress, how they do their hair, whatever the case may be, is all what makes them more so as effectively seductive. And a lot of the other seductive types use that we have read so far. But like I said, I feel naturally inclined as a rake. That's how I feel. What I am so far that I've read all of these. From the 4, I think we only read like 4 chat. I think I'm gonna benefit from this chapter the most, just for the simple fact that when it comes to how I dress, I don't even use that shit to my advantage. I dress like the average dude that you would see. I wear normal shit, like I'm saying. I just got a regular little polo tee and some ball shirts on. Ain't nothing crazy. So learning to use how I dress, the way I style my hair, jewelry, and all these types of things to advantage my seduction. We maxing out all of our perks and abilities, my nigga. You know what I'm saying? Chat, I'm maxing out all my badges. Next page. The feminine dandy. Now, already from the beginning, I already saw that description damn near matches Prince to the T. You know how he was able to dress, wear eyeliner, sit in his chair, you know what I'm saying? He was fluid, very, very fluid in how he was as a person. And he had the whole rock star persona, the whole rock star image. Everything about him was just different. Listen. When the 18-year-old Rodolfo Gug, I'm not even reading that full word, immigrated from Italy to the United States in 1913, he came with no particular skills apart from his good looks and his dancing prowess. To put these qualities to advantage, he found work in the dansants, the Manhattan dance halls where young girls would go alone or with friends and hire a taxi dancer for a brief thrill. The taxi dancer would expertly twirl them around the dance floor, flirting and chatting, all for a small fee. Bro, they were paying to go somewhere and get flirted with. How damn bad do you have to be, chat? The OnlyFans in 1913. Gug soon made I'm gonna just call him Rodolfo. I'm not gonna say his last name, chat. I don't like his last name. Guglielmi. Imagine being that you know how in high school they call it attendance? I feel like the substitute teacher, bro. I'm gonna call him Lil. How about that? I'm gonna separate the name. Lil soon made a name as one of the best, so graceful, poised, and pretty. Chad, there go that word again. I keep telling y'all about poised. Poised and pretty. Call this man pretty. And working as a taxi dancer, Lil spent a great deal of time around women. He quickly learned what pleased them, how to mirror them in subtle ways, how to put them at ease, but not too much. He began to pay attention to his clothes, creating his own dapper look. He danced with the corset under his shirt to give himself a trim figure. Why not just go to the gym and take cold showers? Sported a wristwatch, considered effeminate in those days. Effeminate, meaning taking away from his masculinity. So wearing a wristwatch back then wasn't very masculine for a guy to do. And claimed to be a marquise. In 1915, he landed a job demonstrating the tango in fancy restaurants and changed his name to the more evocative Rodolfo de Valentina. Now I gotta change his name again, chat. I'm gonna call him Vale. A year later, he moved to Los Angeles. He wanted to try and make it in Hollywood. Now known as Valentino, Lil appeared as an extra in several low-budget pictures. He eventually landed a somewhat larger role in the 1919 film Eyes of Youth, in which he played a seducer, and caught women's attention by how different a seducer he was. His movements were graceful and delicate. His skin so smooth and his face so pretty that when he swooped down on his victim and drowned her protests with a kiss, he seemed more thrilling than sinister. Next came the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, in which Valentino played the male lead, Julio the Playboy, and became an overnight sex symbol through a tango sequence in which he seduced a young woman by leading her through the dance. The scene encapsulated the essence of his appeal. His feet smooth and fluid, his poise almost feminine, combined with an air of control. Female members of the audience literally swooned as he raised a married woman's hands to his lips. I'm gonna read that part one more time. Female members of the audience literally swooned as he raised a married woman's hand to his lips, or shared the fragrance of a rose with his lover. He seemed so much more attentive to women than other men did, but mixed in with this delicacy was a hint of cruelty and menace that drove women wild. In his most famous film, The Sheik, Valentino played an Arab prince, later revealed to be Scottish lord abandoned in the Sahara as a baby, who rescues a proud English lady in the desert, then conquers her in a manner that borders on grape. I don't think I can say that word on Twitch. But Twitch is, I'm not going to take the risk and get banned, but I'm going to just say, this educational purposes, grape, drop the G. When she asks, "Why have you brought me here?" he replies, "Are you not woman enough to know?" Damn. Yet she ends up falling in love with him, as indeed women did in the movie's audiences all over the world, thrilling at his strange blend of the feminine and the masculine. In one scene in The Sheik, the English lady points a gun at Valentino. His response is to point a delicate cigarette holder back at her. She wears pants and he wears long flowing robes and abundant eye makeup. Later films will include scenes of Valentino dressing and undressing, a kind of striptease showing glimpses of his trim body. In almost all his films, he plays some exotic period character, a Spanish bullfighter, an Indian Raja, an Arab sheik, a French nobleman. And he seemed to delight in dressing up in jewels and tight uniforms. Chad, this literally sounds exactly like how Prince would dress on purpose in Prince's whole aesthetic. That real slim, skinny look, eyeliner. I don't know to what extent of makeup that he used, right? No long hair, styled it, like get it, curled a certain way. The way he used his jewelry and all that. Chat, in the 1920s, I was actually about to say, chat, should we pull up some film? I'm gonna start recording for a quick and ask. Chat. Alright, so I did, some quick research. I guess this is what he looks like. The eyeliner on, the slick back hair. Doesn't seem too feminine to me from what I'm seeing, chat. Looks like your average Joe. But this is not like the movies though. This is not his characters in the movies, I guess. Not the ones that we're talking about. I fuck with this jacket. Yeah, I'm not noticing anything too feminine. He must have really just been pushing the boundaries for what feminine and masculine was during this time period. But the point being that since he was able to do this, he was able to mess with women in a different way, in the way he seduced them through his dancing, through how he paid attention to them. That's a good common factor from all the other ones that we read so far. Let's keep going, chat. In the 1920s, women were beginning to play with a new sexual freedom. Instead of waiting for a man to be interested in them, they wanted to be able to initiate the affair. So women started snapping in the 1920s. But they still wanted the man to end up sweeping them off their feet. Valentino understood this perfectly. His off-screen life corresponded to his movie image. He wore bracelets on his arm, dressed impeccably, and reportedly was cruel to his wife, and he hit her. His adoring public carefully ignored his 2 failed marriages and his apparently non-existent sex life. What the hell? When he suddenly died in New York in August 1926 at the age of 31 from complications at the surgery for an ulcer, the response was unprecedented. More than 100,000 people filed by his coffin. Many female mourners became hysterical and the whole nation was spellbound. Nothing like this had happened before for a mere actor. But I ain't gonna lie. Even though he ruined his own public image, the cognitive dissonance was so strong with who they identify him as a man. Oh, do you know what they probably assumed? That he's so feminine, he's so soft, he's such a ladies' man that he would never hit a woman. Or that he would never be a virgin or whatever. Because that's what they're saying. He had a non-existent sex life. Obviously that was by choice. There's a film of Valentino's Monsieur Bouquet in which he plays a total fop. I don't even know what that means. A much more effeminate role than he normally played. And without his usual hints of dangerousness, the film was a flop. Damn. Women did not respond to Valentino as a swish. They were thrilled by the ambiguity of a man who shared many of their own feminine traits, yet remained a man. Valentino dressed and played with his physicality like a woman, but his image was masculine. He wooed as a woman would woo if she were a man, slowly, attentively paying attention to details, setting a rhythm instead of hurrying to a conclusion. Yet when the time came for boldness and conquest, his timing was impeccable, overwhelming his victim and giving her no chance to protest. In his movies, Valentino practiced the same gigolo's art of leading a woman on that he had mastered as a teenager on the dance floor. Chatting, flirting, pleasing, but always in control. Valentino remains an enigma to this day. His private life and his character are wrapped in mystery. His image continues to seduce as it did during his lifetime. He served as a model for Elvis Presley, who was obsessed with this star of the silence. And also for the modern male dandy who plays with gender but retains an edge of danger and cruelty. Seduction was and will always remain the female form of power and warfare. It was originally the antidote to rape and violence. The man who uses this form of power on a woman is in essence turning the game around and employing feminine weapons against her. Without losing his masculine identity, the more subtly feminine he becomes, the more effective the seduction. Do not be one of those who believe that what is most seductive is being devastatingly masculine. This is exactly like that article I showed you about Prince. I wonder if they're going to name drop him in this book. The feminine dandy has a much more sinister effect. He lures the woman in with the exactly what she wants, a familiar, pleasing, graceful presence, mirroring feminine psychology. He displays attention to his appearance, sensitivity to detail, a slight coquettishness, but of their own sex. By showing them feminine charm, a man can mesmerize and disarm them, leaving them vulnerable to a bold masculine move. Yeah, chat, this is literally word for word what it was in that article. The feminine dandy can seduce on a mass scale. No single woman really possesses him. He is too elusive, but can fantasize about doing so. The key is ambiguity. Your sexuality is decidedly heterosexual, but your body and psychology float delightfully back and forth between the two poles. And this is a quote by Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso, chat. I am a woman. Oh shit, I forgot to flip the page, chat. I read a whole page down there. Pablo Picasso said, I am a woman. Every artist is a woman. And should have a taste for other women. Okay? Artists who are homosexual cannot be true artists because they like men. Unless she's a woman. And since they themselves are women, they are reverting to normality. So I guess with this quote, they just wanted to exemplify the benefit of playing with genders psychologically. Obviously not literally. Now we're into the masculine dandy. You know what I'm saying? Macho man, chat. It's macho time, chat. In the 1870s, Pastor Henrik Gillett was the darling of the St. Petersburg intelligentsia. He was young, handsome, well-read in philosophy and literature, and he preached a kind of enlightened Christianity. Dozens of young girls had crushes on him and would flock to his sermons just to look at him. In 1878, however, he met a girl who changed his life. Her name was Lou von Salome, later known as Lou Andreas Salome, and she was 17. He was 42. Hey, Yo! This man. Now, chat, if you know anything about a lot of religions, you know that like these huge age gaps in different cultures and different religions, especially a different time period. This is 1878. The way we look at this stuff now, it probably wasn't as crazy back then. But it's just crazy. You let a 17-year-old girl as a 42-year-old man change your life. Let's keep reading though. Let's see how she changed his life, chat. Salome was pretty with radiant blue eyes. She had read a lot, particularly for a girl her age, and was interested in the gravest philosophical and religious issues. Her intensity, her intelligence, her responsiveness to ideas cast a spell over Gillett. So he met a girl that when he meets the average woman, they're already head over heels for him. But he met this girl who she kind of connected with him on a level that most women couldn't, or most women didn't. She went deeper than, you know, the average person would. Chat, it's like he's her victim, bro. That's how they explain this. When she entered his office for her increasingly frequent discussions with him, in the unconscious manner of a young girl, when she entered his office for her increasingly frequent discussions with him, the place seemed brighter and more alive. Perhaps she was flirting with him in the unconscious manner of a young girl, yet when Gillett admitted to himself that he was in love with her and proposed marriage, Salome was horrified. The confused pastor never quite got over Louvain Salome, becoming the first of a long string of famous men to be victim of the lifelong unfulfilled infatuation with her. Yeah, bozo. Then they're talking about philosophy and he like, yeah, I'm trying to get my rocks off. In 1882, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche was wandering around Italy alone. In Genoa, he received a letter from his friend Paul Rie, a Prussian philosopher whom he admired. Recounting his discussions with a remarkable young Russian woman, Louvain Salome in Rome, Salome was there on a holiday with her mother. I'm gonna flip page. Rie had managed to accompany her on long walks through the city, unchaperoned, and they had many conversations. Her ideas on God and Christianity were quite similar to Nietzsche's, and when Rie had told her that the famous philosopher was a friend of his, she had insisted that he invite Nietzsche to join them. In subsequent letters, Rie described how mysteriously captivating Salome was and how anxious he was to meet Nietzsche. The philosopher soon went to Rome. When Nietzsche finally met Salome, he was overwhelmed. She had the most beautiful eyes he had ever seen, and during their first long talk, those eyes lit up so intensely that he could not help feeling there was something exotic or erotic about her excitement. Yet he was also confused. Salome kept her distance, and she did not respond to his compliments. What a devilish young woman. A few days later, she read him a poem of hers, and he cried. Her ideas about life were so like his own. Deciding to seize the moment, Nietzsche proposed marriage. He did not know that Rita had done so as well. Salome declined. She was interested in philosophy, life, adventure, not marriage. Undaunted, Nietzsche continued to court her. On an excursion, I never knew this about Friedrich Nietzsche. On an excursion to Lake Orta with Rie, Salome was and her mother. He managed to get the girl alone, accompanying her on a walk up Monte Sacro, while the others stayed behind. Apparently the views in Nietzsche's words had the proper passionate effect. In a later letter to her, he described this walk as the most beautiful dream of my life. Now he was a man possessed. All he could think about was marrying Salome and having her all to himself. A few months later, Salome visited Nietzsche in Germany. They took long walks together and stayed up all night discussing philosophy. She mirrored his deepest thoughts, anticipated his ideas about religion, yet when he again proposed marriage, she scolded him as conventional. So Chad, it's crazy. They're getting closer and closer and more intellectually intimate. But he can't have her. And you know what? That's making him fall for her and chase her even harder. Because the thing about the first and all other forms of seduction was that the person that was seducing the other person, the seducer and then the victim, The victim could never have the seducer. Now, they're not even saying that this girl is doing this on purpose. They're just saying this is how it happened. You know, that he was down bad for her and that she wasn't really giving him, you know, what he wanted. Let me pick up where I left off. It was Nietzsche, after all, who had developed a philosophical defense of the Superman. The man who above everyday morality. Yet Salome was by nature far less conventional than he was. Her firm, uncompromising manner only deepened the spell she cast over him, like I said, chat, as did her hint of cruelty. When she finally left him, making it clear that she had no intention of marrying him, Nietzsche was devastated. As an antidote to his pain, he wrote Thus Spake Zarathustra, a book full of sublimated eroticism and deeply inspired by his talks with her. From then on, Salome was known throughout Europe as the woman who had broken Nietzsche's heart. Salome moved to Berlin. Soon the city's greatest intellectuals were falling under the spell of her independence and free spirit. The playwrights Gerhard Hauptmann and Franz Wedekind became infatuated with her. In 1897, the great Austrian poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Why are we getting so many names, bro? Why are they spamming names, chat? They spamming squared, bro. Fell in love with her. By that time, her reputation was widely known and she was a published novelist. This certainly played a part in seducing Rilke. But he was also attracted by a kind of masculine energy he found in her that he had never seen in a woman. Rilke was then 22. Salome was 36. He wrote her love letters and poems, followed her everywhere, and began an affair with her that was to last several years. She corrected his poetry, imposed discipline on his overly romantic verse, inspired ideas for new poems, but she was put off by his childish dependence on her, his weakness. Unable to stand weakness of any kind, she eventually left him. So a 22-year-old young man was able to bag her, but Friedrich Nietzsche was struggling to do it. Page, good luck, chat. Good luck, chat. In 1926, lying on his deathbed, he begged his doctors, "Ask Lou what is wrong with me. She was the only one who knows." Love the masculine in her is crazy. But listen, chat, it's polarity. Which is why even in homosexual relationships, you still have one who's more masculine and one who's more feminine. Whether it's a woman dating a woman or a man dating a man or a man dating a woman. It's just polarity and balancing each other out. This is how things naturally tend to be. You know, we like people that are complementary. One man wrote of Salome, "There was something terrifying about her embrace. Looking at you with her radiant blue eyes, she would say, 'The reception of the semen is for me the height of ecstasy.'" And she had an insatiable appetite for it. Yo, check. Y'all gotta, check. She said, "The reception of the semen is for me the height of ecstasy." And she had an insatiable appetite for it. She was completely immoral, a vampire. Dog, she is wild, bro. She's wild. The Swedish psychotherapist Paul Bjerre, one of her later conquests, wrote, "I think Nietzsche was right when he said that Lou was a thoroughly evil woman. Evil, however, in the Goethean sense. Evil that produces good. She may have destroyed lives and marriages, but her presence was exciting." The two emotions that almost every male felt in the presence of Lou Andrés Salome were confusion and excitement. The two prerequisite feelings were any successful seduction. Confusion and excitement. People were intoxicated by her strange mix of the masculine and the feminine. She was beautiful with a radiant smile and graceful, flirtatious manner, but her independence and her intensely analytical nature made her seem oddly male. This ambiguity was expressed in her eyes, which were both coquettish and probing. It was confusion that kept men interested and curious. No other woman was like this. They wanted to know more. The excitement stemmed from her ability to stir up repressed desires. She was a complete nonconformist, and to be involved with her was to break all kinds of taboos. Her masculinity made the relationship seem vaguely homosexual. Yo. Her slightly crude, slightly domineering streak could stir up masochistic yearnings. I fucked that word up the first time I read that shit in the book. I'm not gonna fuck it up this time. Masochistic yearnings, as it did in Niche. Salome radiated a forbidden sexuality. Her powerful effect on men, the lifelong infatuations, the suicides, Twitch, educational purposes. Bro, she made people kill themselves, right? The periods of intense creativity, the descriptions of her as a vampire or a devil, attest to the obscure depths of the psyche that she was able to reach and disturb. Chat, I'm gonna see if I can find a picture of her. So we just looked the girl up. We just looked the girl up that we're talking about and describing, and here's what we have. This is the girl that was able to seduce many men. If you ask me, you know where I think she's from?
It's called the Midwest because every single thing in it is mid. Skyline Chili. Mid. Your Cincinnati Reds who haven't won a World Series since 1990. Mid. Red Sox. And every single.
All right, let's get back to the book, chat. The two emotions. Oh, excuse me, I read that part. Bada boom, bada bang, bada boom, bada bang, bada boom, bada bang, bada boom. There we are. Her powerful effect on men, the lifelong infatuations, the suicides, the periods of intense creativity, the descriptions of her as a vampire or devil, I read this part already, attest to the obscure depths of the psyche that she was able to reach and disturb. But like I said, like we said, with all of these descriptions of these seductive types, chat, this one leans more on the fact that she was able to play into her masculine energy, and that she was providing a sort of substance that women weren't bringing, and that the average man, when they interacted with a woman, wasn't bringing, which was more masculine in a woman during this time period, because the average woman wasn't independent. She was depending on her man back then. You know what I'm saying? The man was the head of the household. Y'all know these outdated forms of masculinity and femininity, and the man and the woman, the man in the house, the head of the household, you know, all types of stuff, chat. So for her to be so independent and for her to be so different was the most seductive thing about her. And on top of that you could never have her, that she was confusing. The masculine dandy succeeds by reversing the normal pattern of male superiority in matters of love and seduction. A man's apparent independence, his capacity for detachment, often seems to give him the upper hand in the dynamic between men and women. A purely feminine woman will arouse desire, but is always vulnerable to the man's capricious loss of interest. A purely masculine woman, on the other hand, will not arouse that interest at all. Follow the path of the masculine dandy, however, and you neutralize all a man's powers. Never give completely of yourself while you are passionate and sexual. Always retain an air of independence and self-possession. You might move on to the next man, or so he will think. You have other more important matters to concern yourself with, such as your work. Now keep in mind, chat, I'm gonna connect the dot here and show you the variation and the variety in seduction. Remember the rake, and it was the demonic rake, right? The deep one, who was just deep, not just with the woman, but with people in overall, and that's what helped the seductive effect. Before that was the what do they call the first rake? The Ardent Rake, right? And looking at the Ardent Rake, one of the most seductive things about that rake was that the woman loved that the guy couldn't control his desire for her. So that uncontrollable desire he had for her. Remember they told the story of the guy who slept in the church, in like the under of a church or something like that, where it was rats, bugs, it was dirty. He sat there for hours waiting for her. So that uncontrolled desire played into the seduction, the lengths he was willing to go to get her, whether she had a husband, whether she was about to leave or get married, whatever the case may be. That was the lengths, that uncontrolled desire is what helped seduce the woman. And in this case, as you see with the masculine dandy, it's the exact opposite. It's the fact that they can't get her. It's the fact that she has no desire for them, or she has no interest in them, and then that she loses it. You know what I'm saying? So y'all got to see the variety, and depending on what the victim, what we're seeing is that there's a consistent seductive quality about having and experiencing what you wouldn't normally get every day. Because what is every woman going to do to a powerful man? Or not every woman, right? And that's the key. Not every woman, but majority of women. These men are used to women who just fall into their laps. Women who just they can't even go into the depths of a regular conversation with them. So even though, like in the beginning of the story, they talked about how they used to talk about philosophy, it was the fact that she knew these things and challenged their intellectual side, which made her so attractive. Not necessarily her looks or the fact that she was flirting, but the fact that she was different. Let's keep going, chat. Just a dot I wanted to connect. You have other more important matters to concern yourself with, such as your work. Men do not know how to fight women who use their own weapons against them. They are intrigued, aroused, and disarmed. Few men can resist the taboo pleasures offered up to them by the masculine dandy. Let's flip the page. This is a quote by Colette. The seduction emanating from a person of uncertain or dissimulated sex is powerful. Keys to the character. Many of us today imagine that sexual freedom has progressed in recent years, that everything has changed for better or worse. This is mostly an illusion. A reading of history reveals periods of licentiousness. Imperial Rome, late 17th century England, the floating world of 18th century Japan, far in excess of what we're currently experiencing. Gender roles are certainly changing, but they have changed before. Society is in a state of constant flux. But there is something that does not change. The vast majority of people conform to whatever is normal for the time. The vast majority of people, chat. They play the role allotted to them. And I told y'all, that's exactly why I love that Prince example, because y'all can see that y'all think that masculine alpha males are the only successful men with women. Or that the only way to be successful or the most attractive thing in a man is his masculinity, his huge muscles, his deep voice. And y'all can see a feminine man, a very feminine, not just slightly feminine, like long hair, earrings, whatever, how he dress. Everything about him was super feminine, literally except the slim amount of things. But this man that pushed the boundaries and was even more successful than you or another guy out there who's trying to pretend to be masculine or trying to line himself up on the other side just to be successful with women. Let's keep going, chat. Conformity is a constant because humans are social creatures who are always imitating one another. Humans. Bots. Surface dwellers. Limps. Justins. Whatever we call y'all. At certain points in history, it may be fashionable to be different and rebellious, but if a lot of people are playing that role, there's nothing different or rebellious about it. And that's the key. Now everybody want to have, grow their hair out and have these little tiny ass little sayings. Now everybody want to get tattoos. Now everybody want to, get all these crazy piercings and do a lot. Yo, listen. And that's the crazy part, chat. This is a perfect example of this. Dudes were scared to get piercings. Now, mind you, I'm not even a crazy piercing boy. I just got my ears pierced. That's it. And I barely wear my earrings. Like, I don't even, 99% of the time, unless I go outside and I'm like going to an event, that's when I'm going to throw them on. But dudes were scared to get piercings. Now, guess what, chat? Everybody got nose piercings, not just ears. Nose piercings. Everybody tatted up. Everybody wearing, baggy clothes, calling it fashion. I mean, chat, it's so many examples of this we can go into. Everybody got that. Chat, y'all know that haircut that the average Joe is going to have. The fade that goes around, and then it's high at the top, and then I'm not talking about not just black men, but, just in general. Going to be a fade around and then a comb over. It's like, yo, now that everybody is different, it's not different no more. You know that, right? We should never complain about most people's slavish conformity. However, for it offers untold possibilities of power and seduction to those who are up for a few risks. Dandies have existed in all ages and cultures. And wherever they have gone, they have thrived on the conformist role playing of others. So y'all only help people that are different by trying to be different, because now you're not as different. But now you're different or trying to be different, and all the crowd goes that way. Now I'm still standing here and I stand out even more because y'all all trying to be different. We are drawn to those who are more fluid and flaunt their difference. Dandies seduce socially as well as sexually. Groups form around them. Their style is wildly imitated. An entire court or crowd will fall in love with them. Chat, I'm gonna pull this up. So YouTube, I decided to pull up the perfect example of this. I'll try not to play too much because when I put in that Marilyn Monroe video, look, it's licensed. Oh no, that was the song, not the actual video. But when I put the Marilyn Monroe video on, they tried to copyright my video. Now look, Prince, eyeliner, slick back hair, you know what I'm saying, long hair, feminine movements and stuff. Look at how he's dressed. Look at how he's sitting. Whole crowd of women. Listen, and if I play some of the video,
dig. Don't you like surprises?
playing with, you know what I'm saying? Chat, bottom line is, extremely what, chat? For a man, chat, what is this? What is this? Extremely what, chat? Extremely feminine. But still powerful, still has that influence over women. Why? Because, you know, I think that was like 1987, they said, you pull a random, pull 10 men out of a hat. How many of them you think gonna look like that? Gonna wear things like that? Gonna dress like that? I mean, you know, Prince was a rock star, you know what I'm saying, a superstar in the music industry. But with that being said, he pushed, regardless of being a superstar, there were still men who conformed to the role that they were given as men. You know what I'm saying? So look, like you try to use this excuse. He was rich with fame though. That's your excuse for why he can get away with this. You don't understand why it's working or why women like it or why it's as effective as it is. You see it at face, and then you using this as an excuse is the same exact excuse of why you would conform. You know why what you're saying is? Because, okay, it only works for him because he's rich with fame. But what you don't see is that that's why you're trying to do what works, because you're not rich and famous. So you're going to try to do what works. It's the same coin, just another side. And you don't even see it though. But let's keep going, chat. This is why when y'all say certain things, it's so easy to read you. It's so easy to read. And no disrespect to M Sims 35. I'm just saying, you helped me make a good point right there. The dandy displays a true and radical difference from other people, a difference of appearance and manner. Since most of us are secretly oppressed by our lack of freedom, we are drawn to those who are more fluid and flaunt their difference. I think I skipped that sentence, chat, the lack of freedom part. Dandies seduce socially as well as sexually. Groups form around them, and that's what made me play the video. In adapting the dandy character for your own purposes, remember that the dandy is by nature a rare and beautiful flower. Now, if there were a bunch of princes roaming around, he wouldn't have been as Prince was. Be different in ways that are both striking and aesthetic. Never vulgar. Poke fun at current trends and styles, go in a novel direction, and be supremely uninterested in what anyone else is doing. Most people are insecure. Where am I going? I just lost my spot that bad. Most people are insecure. They will wonder what you are up to. And slowly they will come to admire and imitate you because you express yourself with total confidence. The dandy has traditionally been defined by clothing, and certainly most dandies create a unique visual style. Beau Brummel, the most famous dandy of all, would spend hours on his toilet. Not like shit in toilet. Particularly inimitably styled knot on his necklace, for which he was famous throughout early 19th century England. But a dandy style cannot be obvious, for dandies are subtle and never try hard for attention. Attention comes to them. The person whose clothes are frequently different has little imagination or taste. Dandies show the difference in the little touches that mark their disdain for convention. Theophile Gautier's red vest, Oscar Wilde's green velvet suit, Andy Warhol's silver wigs. The great English Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli had two magnificent canes, one for morning and one for evening. At noon, he would change canes, no matter where he was. The female dandy works similarly. She may adopt male clothing, say, but if she does, a touch here or there will set her truly apart. No man ever dressed like George Sand. The overall hat, the riding boots worn on the streets of Paris made her a sight to behold. Remember, there must be a reference point. If your visual style is totally unfamiliar, people will think you are at best obvious attention getter, at worst crazy. So you can't just obviously dress like, you know, Paige. Good looks check. Good looks check. Instead, create your own fashion sense by adapting and altering prevailing styles to make yourself an object of fascination. Do this right and you will be wildly imitated. The Count Diorse, a great London dandy of the 1830s and 1840s, was closely watched by fashionable people one day, caught in a sudden London rainstorm. He bought a poutrick, a kind of heavy hooded duffel coat, off the back of a Dutch seller. Chat, I wanna stop right here and bring up an example. So you know how dudes, and you know, I'm not speaking for the dudes who do this for their own desire. Like if you like change, if you like your grill, if you like, you know, how you dress for you personally, then so be it. But for the dudes who dress like this in order to get women, you know what I'm saying? Like they fake chains, posting next to the cars, you know, who do it on purpose because they know it's gonna get them more women. Then you meet a woman like that came from Then you meet a woman who came like from the E-Day, like not the E-Day, but the Pineapple Show, where she was like athletes and da-da-da. You now are normal. You separate yourself from the regular dude who can't afford a chain or afford to dress how you dress, but now you just as normal as all the men who can. So you just try to separate yourself from one group and you just became normal in another. You know what I'm saying? The poutrick immediately became the coat to wear. Having people imitate you, of course, is a sign of your powers of seduction. The nonconformity of dandies, however, goes far beyond appearances. It is an attitude towards life that sets them apart. Adopt that attitude and a circle of followers will form around you. So not only was Prince dressing how he was, but we was able to sit there and listen to how spiritual his conversation was. And that, chat, to me, that was the best part about the video. Yeah, we talking about game and eye contact and, you know, all the flirting and stuff like that. But if you were actually listening to the conversation, especially the point that I remember the most is when he was like, he was talking to another artist and he said that, you know, he's talking about criticism. And a lot of times if you're putting yourself out there and you're worried about what people think about you and criticism and, you know, negative opinions or whatever the case may be, validation, of course. He said that art is perfect upon creation. And if I create through God, you're essentially, to judge my work is to judge God. But, you know, obviously not a super deeply spiritual thing, but it's a different approach to constructive criticism or criticism overall that people would take. What somebody would arrogantly do is, man, fuck you, I don't give a fuck what you think about my music, man, my shit. But he made it spiritual. He took it the spiritual route because he was a spiritual man. So let's keep going, chat. Dandies are supremely impudent. They don't give a damn about other people and never try to please. In the court of Louis XV, the writer Le Bruyere noticed that courtiers who tried hard to please were invariably on the way down. Nothing was more anti-seductive. As Barbie d'Aurevilly wrote, dandies please women by displeasing them. Impudence was fundamental to the appeal of Oscar Wilde in a London theater one night after the first performance of one of Wilde's plays. The aesthetic audience yelled for the offer to appear on stage. Wilde made them wait and then finally emerged, smoking a cigarette and wearing an expression of total disdain. It may be bad manners to appear here smoking, but it is far worse to disturb me when I am smoking. He scolded his fans. So chat, y'all know how y'all get mad at musicians when they show up late to concerts and they come out late and all that, you know what I'm saying? And y'all still dance when they come out? Whole time they could be doing that on purpose. Let's keep going though. The Count Diorse was equally impudent. At a London club one night, a Rothschild who was notoriously cheap accidentally dropped a gold coin on the floor, then bent down to look for it. The Count immediately whipped out a 1,000-franc note worth more than a coin, rolled it up, lit it like a candle, and got down on all fours as if to light all the way in search. Only a dandy could get away with such audacity. The insolence of the rake is tied up with his desire to conquer a woman. He cares for nothing else. The insolence of the dandy, on the other hand, is aimed at society and its conventions. And I love how they're comparing and contrasting different examples. Because where the dandy has the desire, the more challenging the woman is, and he's targeting her, and he's infiltrating her defense and doing it in his way. The dandy is more so like, I don't give a fuck about shit. I don't even care. I'm laid back. I'm nonchalant. And my not care, nonchalant, don't give a fuck attitude is what makes that type all the more attractive. Alright, so keep going. It is not a woman he cares to conquer, but a whole group, an entire social world. And since people are generally oppressed by the obligation of always being polite and self-sacrificing, they are delighted to spend time around a person who disdains such niceties. Dandies are masters of the art of living. They live for pleasure, not for work. They surround themselves with beautiful objects and eat and drink. I'm about to flip the page, chat. I ain't gonna forget. Let me make sure. There we go. With the same relish they show for their clothes. This was how the great Roman writer Petronius, author of the Satyrion, was able to seduce Emperor Nero. Unlike the dull Seneca, the great Stoic thinker and Nero's tutor, Petronius knew how to make every detail of life a grand aesthetic adventure, from a feast to a simple conversation. This is not an attitude you should impose on those around you. You can't make yourself a nuisance. But if you simply seem socially confident and sure of your taste, people will be drawn to you. The key is to make everything an aesthetic choice. Your ability to alleviate boredom by making life an art will make your company highly prized. The opposite sex is a strange country we can never know. And this excites us, creates the proper sexual tension, but it is also a source of annoyance and frustration. Men do not understand how women think and vice versa. Each tries to make the other act more like a member of their own sex. Dandies may never try to please, but in this one area they have pleasing effect. By adopting psychological traits of the opposite sex, they appeal to our inherent narcissism. Women identify with Rudolph Valentino's delicacy and attention to detail in courtship. Men identify with Lou Andrews Salome's lack of interest and commitment. In the hand court of 11th century Japan, C. Shonagon, the writer of the Pillow Book, was powerfully seductive for men, especially literary types. She was fiercely independent, wrote poetry with the best, and had a certain emotional distance. Men wanted more from her than just to be her friend or companion, as if she wrote another man, as if she were another man. Charmed by her empathy for male psychology, they fell in love with her. This kind of mental transvestism, the ability to enter the spirit of the opposite sex, adapt to their way of thinking, mirror their tastes and attitudes, can be a key element in seduction. It is a way of mesmerizing your victim. According to Freud, the human libido is essentially bisexual. Most people are in some way attracted to people of their own sex, but social constraints, varying with culture and historical period, repress these impulses. So as a man, it's not likely for a man to acknowledge or openly say that he likes to be dominated. He likes a masculine woman. You would the first thing you're gonna say if a man says that, oh, he's gay. And it's that same reaction why you are too afraid to say it and move like that. But behind closed doors, that girl already know. You sucking her toes. She doing whatever. She pushing you around, or however the case may be. I'm not necessarily that guy, so I don't really know. But I'm just saying that's a perfect example of what it is like when you repress who you really are. And the big key factor of the dandies is they stand on who they are and they stand on it all the way, and they don't give a fuck what you think about it. Alright, remember to put Spirited Away in. I'm gonna say that right now. I just started recording. Let's keep going. Alright. In several Shakespearean, the dandy represents a release from such constraints. In several of Shakespeare's plays, a young girl, back then the female roles in the theater were actually played by male actors, has to go into disguise and dresses up as a boy, eliciting all kinds of sexual interest from men, who later are delighted to find out that the boy is actually a girl. Think, for example, of Rosalind in As You Like It. Entertainers such as Josephine Baker, known as the Chocolate Dandy, and Marlene Dietrich who would dress up as men in their acts, making themselves wildly popular among men. Meanwhile, the slightly feminized man, the pretty boy, has always been seductive to women. Valentino embodied this quality. But chat, you know, like I said, the point I'm making now is that every guy is a pretty boy now. Or every guy is trying to be an NBA young boy. It's either pretty boy or NBA young boy. The filmmaker Kenneth Anger said of Mick Jagger that it was a bisexual charm which constituted an important part of the attraction he had over young girls, and which acted upon their unconscious. In Western culture for centuries, in fact, feminine beauty has been far more fetishized than male beauty. So it is understandable that a feminine-looking face like that of Montgomery Clift would have more seductive power than that of John Wayne. The dandy figure, I gotta flip the page. The dandy figure has a place in politics as well. John F. Kennedy was a strange mix of the masculine and feminine. Virile in his toughness with the Russians and his White House lawn football games, yet feminine in his graceful and dapper appearance. This ambiguity was a large part of his appeal. Disraeli was an incorrigible dandy in dress and manner. And chat, notice how they brought up John F. Kennedy before. Not as a dandy, but they showed how one aspect of him was a dandy type figure. So you can merge between multiple different seductive types and benefit from the different qualities. You can be an avatar, a master of all elements, but you have to be him. Him Jong-un, Hemi Turner, Hemi Neutron, Hemi Potter. This ambiguity was a large part of his appeal. Disraeli was an incorrigible dandy in dress and manner. Some were suspicious of him as a result. But his courage in not caring what people thought of him also won him respect. You know, everybody would say Prince was gay and think he was, you know, homosexual or whatever. But he never even flinched to dress more masculine or act more masculine. He just still remained and did what he wanted to. Wore high heels and everything. They appreciated the gentleness of his manner, his aesthetic sense, his love of clothes, in other words, his feminine qualities. The mainstay of Disraeli's power was in fact a female fan, Queen Victoria. Do not be misled by the surface disapproval your dandy pose may elicit. Society may publicize its distrust of the androgyny. Chat, if I drop these videos and they go viral, we're just gonna have a bunch of feminine men. I already know it's coming, bro. I already know it's coming. But this conceals its fascination. What is most seductive is often what is most repressed. Learn a playful dandyism and you will become the magnet for people's dark, unrealized yearnings. The key to such power is ambiguity. In a society where the roles everyone plays are obvious, this refusal to conform to any standard will excite interest. Be both masculine and feminine, impudent and charming, subtle and outrageous. Let other people worry about being socially acceptable. Those types are a dime a dozen, and you are after a power greater than they can imagine. The symbol, orchid. Its shape and color oddly suggest both sexes. Its odor is sweet and decadent. It is a tropical flower of evil, delicate and highly cultivated. It is prized for its rarity. It is unlike any other flower. You know what I'm saying? Next page. Dangers. The dandy's strength, but also the dandy's problem, is that he or she often works through transgressive feelings relating to sex roles. Although this activity is highly charged and seductive, it is also dangerous since it touches on a source of great anxiety and insecurity. The greater dangers will often come from your own sex. Valentino had immense appeal for women, but men hated him. He was constantly dogged with accusations of being perversely unmasculine, and this caused him great pain. So obviously, you know, women love Prince, and then every guy, especially when we watched him, y'all was like, man, that shit gay, like that shit sus, that shit crazy. Even I was like, whoa, you pushing the limits. But I respect that was him. But most men are gonna look at him and be like, man, that sucker, man, that weak. And they don't even realize they are programmed to have that response. You see, I can respect it, but realize that that's not for me personally. He was constantly dogged with accusations of being perversely unmasculine. I read this part already, and it's caused him great pain. Salome was equally disliked by women. Nietzsche's sister and perhaps his closest friend considered her an evil witch and led a virulent campaign against her in the press long after the philosopher's death. There's little to be done in the face of resentment like this. Some dandies try to fight the image they themselves have created, but this is unwise to prove his masculinity. Some dandies try to fight the image they themselves have created, but this is unwise. To prove his masculinity, Valentino would engage in a boxing match. Anything to prove his anything to prove his masculinity. He wound up looking only desperate. Better to accept society's occasional jibs with grace and insolence. After all, the dandy's charm is that they don't really care what people think of them. That is how Andy Warhol played the game. When people tired of his antics or some scandal erupted, instead of trying to defend himself, he would simply move on to some new image. Decadent bohemian, high society portraitist, etc., as if to say with a hint of disdain that the problem lay not with him but with other people's attention span. Another danger for the dandy is the fact that insolence has its limits. Beau Brummel prided himself on two things: his trimness of figure and his Arabic wit. His main social patron was the Prince of Wales, who in later years grew plump. One night at dinner, the prince rang for the butler, and Brummel snidely remarked, "Do ring, Big Ben." The prince did not appreciate the joke. Had Brummel shown out and never spoke to him again. Without royal patronage, Brummel fell into poverty and madness. Even a dandy then must measure out his impudence. A true dandy knows the difference between a theatrically staged teasing of the powerful and a remark that will truly hurt, offend, or insult. It is particularly important to avoid insulting those in a position to injure you. In fact, the pose may work best for those who can afford to offend artists, bohemians, etc. In the work world, you will probably have to modify and tone down your dandy image. Be pleasantly different in amusement rather than a person who challenges the group's conventions and make others feel secure. And that is the dandy, chat. And you let me know if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything that comes to mind, chat. Yeah, why did the song change? Like I said, chat, that was short. No, we just read fast. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna read the I'm gonna look at the natural. The natural. Childhood is the golden paradise we are always consciously or unconsciously trying to recreate. The natural embodies the longed for qualities of childhood: spontaneity, sincerity, unpretentiousness. In the presence of naturals, we feel at ease, caught up in their playful spirit. Chat, who does it sound like? Transported back to that golden age. Naturals also make a virtue out of weakness, eliciting our sympathy for their trials, making us want to protect them and help them. As with a child, much of this is natural, but some of it is exaggerated, a conscious seductive maneuver. Adopt the pose of the natural to neutralize people's natural defensiveness and infect them with helpless delight. Thank Harlow. Nah, child, I was thinking Casanat. Well, you know, an aspect of him, how he can be so playloose, so free, so lit, so energetic. Where, you know, most guys are gonna try to be what, chat? Most guys are trying to be what? Well, you know, baby, they're gonna try to sit on the wall. They scared to dance. They, you know, even Bobby Shmurda. Know what I'm saying, chat? So any let me know any questions y'all got. Like I said, the important thing is that y'all ask these questions because somebody in the YouTube comments might not be able to ask this question because they're not watching it live. You know what I'm saying? So what was the takeaway? The takeaway is that what makes the dandy so attractive, so seductive, is that they stand on their own and they do what they want. And with the woman who was the masculine dandy, the key with her was standing on her own meant doing, thinking, and talking and dressing in a way that other women don't, which seduced most men because they never ran into her before. But the key thing about the dandy is that they don't care about the rules and the way things are and how they're supposed to be. They just do what they want. They're wild. You cannot tame them, and they don't conform to anything. This almost sounds like the Siren, right, chat? But the Siren took a step above what women would do and was bold enough to do it. This takes what women will do. Let's just use women for example. What most women will do and does it differently. So either way, both of them are shown to benefit from the conforming normality of most people you'll interact with, but they do it in different ways. The Siren and the I think the Rake came after that, goes a step further. So the Siren, not only did Cleopatra dressed how she dressed, but she would take guys on trips, show them all the land and throw these big parties. She took it a step further. With the demonic Rake, it was more so of an intellectual, like a mouthpiece kind of thing. They went deeper than most men will go, because whatever the case may be, right? And in doing so, with this kind of dandy, with the dandies themselves, they do that on all levels. They may do it on the subjects they talk about, but the key thing about them is that how they dress. And the great example of this was Prince, Lil Uzi. I think Lil Uzi is a great example of a dandy. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even know why I didn't even think of Lil Uzi. Thugger, yeah. Exactly. Lil Uzi and Thugger. They, listen. They may dress and wear some things where we look at them and be like, what? Cardi, yup. A lot of rock stars. We look at them like, what? No, that's sus. That's this. That's that. And that's us judging them from the what? A conformer's mindset. Because all we're pushing is the crowd. You're not supposed to dress like that because you're a man. You're not supposed to dress like that because you're a woman. That's wrong. That's not how men dress. That's gay. That's suspect. That's all you're doing when you do that is be a bot. Prince, we already mentioned Prince was a dandy, a great example of it. How he expressed himself through his clothes and stuff like that, and his manner. Now, all we do when we do that is nothing to them, because they don't care. And that's the key thing about them, is that they wear even more feminine things. They wear even more wild outfits, and they don't buckle down. So we have a lot of great examples of dandies. You know what I'm saying? And I would even add into that men can try to mimic them. They can get dreads like Uzi and dye them, but they're not gonna have the mannerisms that Uzi have. Uzi can sit there and talk normal, but Uzi also has like Che, y'all know the shit, like Uzi eye roll and all types of shit that he does, all types of shit. So it's in everything, not just how they dress. Their mannerisms, how they talk, what they care about, and all that. It's the whole package. We all programmed. Exactly. We're all taught to be like that. Now you can control the extent to which you are controlled. And if you want to know how, watch my Allegory of the Cave video, the 3 levels of mental complexity. And that was only an excerpt from a bigger book. You know what I'm saying? But alright, y'all, I think if a female dresses masculine and acts masculine, that shit is so attractive. That's your opinion. That's you personally. But alright, y'all, I think I'm gonna end the video right there. And next we have the natural.